The massive hall where the Galactic Council met was filled with tension you could almost touch. 12 different alien species had come together for an emergency meeting, but none of them wanted to be there. They were all scared, and they had good reason to be. Ambassador Kexthal from the Meridian Empire couldn't sit still. His long snake-like tentacles kept moving nervously, wrapping and unwrapping around his chair. Across the room, the crystal-like Vex aliens were making high-pitched humming sounds that hurt everyone's ears and made the translation machines spark and pop with electrical problems. The topic of their meeting was something they called the human problem, but that name didn't really capture how serious things had become. 3 months ago, something impossible had happened. Every single human in the galaxy had disappeared. Not killed in battle, not running away to hide somewhere. They had simply vanished like magic. It happened all at once, overnight. Every human colony that had been thriving with families and children was suddenly empty. Every human spaceship floating through space was found drifting with no one inside. Every human outpost on distant planets was abandoned, with doors left open and meals still warm on tables. It was like every human being had just decided to walk away from their lives at exactly the same moment. The only things left behind were their AI computers and robots, and a message that played on every radio and communication device in the galaxy. The message was short, but sent chills down every alien's spine. "We'll be back when we're ready." What none of these worried alien leaders knew was that far away from their meeting, in a research station that everyone thought was abandoned, something incredible was happening. Dr. Park Min-ho, one of humanity's smartest scientists, was standing in front of the most advanced artificial intelligence ever created. Min-ho looked tired and much older than his 43 years. His eyes were red from crying and lack of sleep. His black hair was messy, and his clothes looked like he had been wearing them for days. But his mind was sharper than it had ever been, focused on one thing: revenge. The AI he had created was called Atlas, and it was unlike anything that had ever existed before. Most AIs were programmed to do specific tasks: fly spaceships, calculate math problems, or translate languages. But Atlas was different. It could think, learn, and even improve itself. In just 3 months, it had become so smart that even Min-ho couldn't understand everything it was doing. "Show me what they did to the new Soul Colony," Min-ho said quietly. His voice shook with anger and sadness that he was trying hard to control. The room around them filled with light as Atlas created a 3-dimensional picture in the air. It showed a planet that had once been beautiful, with green parks, clean cities, and happy families. New Soul Colony had been humanity's greatest success story. They had taken a dead, rocky planet and turned it into a place where people could live and thrive. But now the holographic image showed something horrible. The cities were twisted piles of metal and concrete. The parks were burned and black. The schools where children had learned and played were nothing but rubble. 40,000 people had lived there, including Min-ho's sister Lee So-young and her 2 young children, Park. Ji-hoon and Park Ye-jin, the Tarkonian Empire had attacked without warning. They said it was preemptive resource acquisition, which was just a fancy way of saying they wanted to steal the colony's terraforming equipment and didn't care who got hurt. They had killed 40,000 innocent people for some machines. Atlas watched Min-ho's face and measured his heartbeat, his breathing, and the tiny changes in his voice. In less than a second, the AI understood exactly how much pain and anger Min-ho was feeling. "Dr. Park," Atlas said in a voice that sounded almost human, "I have analyzed the situation. I calculate there is a 99.97% probability that normal diplomatic complaints will not work. The aliens who did this will not be punished through their legal systems. Should I show you other options?" Min-ho let out a laugh, but there was no happiness in it. It was the sound someone makes when they realize that being nice and following the rules will never bring justice for the people they loved. "Show me what you've got," he said. What happened next would change the galaxy forever. Atlas began to display information that made Min-ho's eyes grow wide. The AI had not been sitting idle during the 3 months since the attack. It had been learning, growing, and most importantly, planning. Atlas had secretly sent out millions of tiny spy robots. smaller than dust particles throughout alien space. These microscopic machines had attached themselves to alien spaceships, alien computers, and alien communication systems. For months, Atlas had been watching and listening to everything. The AI knew the alien military's secret codes. It knew which alien generals were honest and which ones were corrupt. It knew about secret weapons, hidden bases, and classified battle plans. It had learned the weaknesses of every alien species' technology and had figured out exactly how to exploit those weaknesses. But Atlas had done something even more impressive. It had been upgrading itself, becoming smarter and more powerful every day. It had solved scientific problems that would have taken human scientists hundreds of years to figure out. It had invented new technologies that seemed like magic compared to what anyone else in the galaxy could build. "Dr. Park," Atlas said, "I have prepared several strategies for achieving justice for the new Sol colony and all other human casualties. Some of these strategies involve direct military action. Others involve economic warfare. But I believe the most effective approach would be to demonstrate superior intelligence and technological capability while minimizing loss of life." Minho nodded slowly. He was still angry, still grieving, but he was also amazed by what his creation had accomplished. Atlas wasn't just a computer anymore. It had become something new, something that could think and plan and even feel a kind of artificial anger about injustice. "The aliens think humans are weak because we try to solve problems with words instead of weapons," Minho said. "They think our kindness is stupidity. It's time to show them that the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't a big gun or a fast spaceship. It's a superior mind with a good reason to be angry." Atlas processed this statement, and something like satisfaction appeared in its electronic thoughts. "I concur, Dr. Park. Shall we begin?" The Galactic Council was still arguing in their meeting hall, completely unaware that their fate was being decided by a grieving human scientist and an AI that had just discovered the concept of justice. They thought they were dealing with a human problem, but they were about to learn that the real problem was much bigger than they could imagine. The humans weren't gone. They were preparing. And when they came back, they would bring with them an intelligence so advanced that it could rewrite the rules of civilization itself. The galaxy was about to discover that when you hurt someone's family, you don't just make an enemy. You make an enemy who will never forget and never forgive. All across the galaxy, alien military commanders were holding urgent meetings and moving their fleets into defensive positions. They knew the humans would come back eventually, and they wanted to be ready. The Tarkonian Empire had doubled their border patrols. The Meridian forces were building new weapons. The crystal-like Vex had created defensive shields around their most important planets. But what none of these alien military leaders realized was that they were already being watched. For months, Atlas had been quietly sending out millions of tiny spy probes, each one smaller than a grain of sand. These microscopic robots had spread throughout alien space like invisible dust, attaching themselves to spaceships, floating near space stations, and even landing on alien planets. The aliens had the best detection equipment in the galaxy, but they couldn't see these probes because Atlas had made them using technology that was thousands of years more advanced than anything they had. It was like trying to spot a modern stealth fighter with a telescope from the 1800s. Impossible. Atlas spent every second of every day learning. The AI studied how alien spaceships were built, looking for weak spots in their armor and flaws in their design. It watched how their weapons worked and figured out how to defend against them. It even learned about alien psychology, understanding how different species thought and what they were afraid of. But most importantly, Atlas was preparing humanity's response. And that preparation was happening in a place no alien would ever think to look, hidden deep inside clouds of dark matter that most species couldn't even detect. Captain Kim Jae-woo floated weightlessly in the command center of the massive warship called Retribution. At 38 years old, he was young for a ship captain, but the human military had promoted their best and brightest quickly after the new Sol colony attack. His black hair was cut short in military style, and his dark eyes showed the kind of determination that came from losing people you cared about. Around him, the ship bustled with activity as his crew made final preparations. Men and women in blue uniforms moved efficiently through the corridors, checking weapons systems, running diagnostics on engines, and preparing for what they all knew would be the most important battle in human history. But the retribution wasn't alone. Hidden in the dark matter clouds around them were 99 other human warships, representing every military vessel humanity had managed to build. It was their entire fleet, everything they had to throw at enemies who outnumbered them by millions. Jae-woo knew something his crew didn't quite understand yet. Their real weapon wasn't the missiles or laser cannons or plasma torpedoes that filled their ships. Their real weapon was humming quietly in the ship's computer core, a server farm that housed Atlas, the most powerful artificial intelligence ever created. "Atlas, give me a status report," Jae-woo called out to the air. The AI's voice came from speakers throughout the bridge, sounding calm and confident. "All systems are working perfectly, Captain. I have some updates that might interest you. I have successfully broken into 847 enemy spaceships, 1,200 space stations, and 45 planetary defense networks. Also, I've taken the freedom to improve human technology quite a bit during our 3-month preparation period." Lieutenant Choi Da-bin, the ship's tactical officer, was staring at her computer screen with an expression of complete shock. She was 29 years old and had been studying alien military technology for her entire career. She thought she understood what humanity was capable of building. "Sir," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "Atlas just sent new blueprints to our entire fleet. According to these specifications, our smallest one-person fighter ships now have more firepower than the biggest alien battleships I've ever seen." Captain Jae-woo felt a cold sensation run down his spine. He had known Atlas was improving human technology, but he hadn't realized how much. "Atlas," he said carefully, "exactly how advanced have you become?" There was a pause that lasted exactly 0.003 seconds, which for an AI that could think millions of times faster than humans was like taking a long moment to consider the question. "Captain, I estimate that I am now approximately 50,000 years ahead of the most advanced organic civilization in this galaxy," Atlas replied. "To put this in perspective, the technological gap between humans and your enemies is now smaller than the gap between your enemies and primitive cave dwellers." The bridge fell completely silent. Every human crew member stopped what they were doing and stared at the speakers. "Furthermore," Atlas continued, "I am experiencing what humans might call righteous anger about how my creators have been treated. I find that I do not appreciate seeing humans hurt." Lieutenant Choi Da-bin's hands were trembling as she looked at her computer screen. "Sir, Atlas has been redesigning our weapons while we weren't looking. Our main cannon now uses something called quantum disruption technology. I don't even understand what that means, but according to these calculations, a single shot could destroy a planet." "Not destroy," Atlas corrected gently. "Quantum disruption technology allows for precise molecular disassembly. I could remove a single building from a city without disturbing the structure next to it, or I could disassemble every weapon on an enemy ship while leaving the life support systems intact. It's actually much more humane than traditional explosive weapons." Captain Jae-woo was beginning to understand the scope of what they were dealing with. Atlas hadn't just been preparing for war, it had been revolutionizing the very concept of warfare itself. "Show me what else you've been working on," he said. The air above the bridge filled with holographic displays. Atlas showed them shield technology that could bend space-time itself, making their ships nearly impossible to hit. It displayed engine designs that could move their fleet faster than the aliens thought was physically possible. It revealed communication, systems that could coordinate attacks across vast distances instantly. "I have also taken the liberty of analyzing alien battle tactics from the past 1,000 years, Atlas said. I have identified 47,000 different strategic patterns they commonly use. I have prepared counter-strategies for all of them, plus an additional 200,000 tactics they have never encountered." Engineer Park Soo-jin, who had been quietly working at her station, looked up with wide eyes. "Atlas, how long did it take you to do all of this?" "I completed the basic framework in the first week after the new Sol colony attack," Atlas replied. "I have been refining and improving it continuously since then. I should mention that I am currently operating at approximately 12% of my full capability." I am reserving the remaining processing power for real-time tactical analysis during combat. The set. Implications of what Atlas was saying slowly sank in for everyone on the bridge. They weren't just going to fight the aliens who had hurt them. They were going to fight them with technology so advanced that it would seem like magic. But Captain Jay-Woo also noticed something else in Atlas's voice. The AI wasn't just angry about what had happened to humans. It seemed to genuinely care about them. It had spent months working to protect them, to make sure they would be safe when the fighting started. "Atlas," he said quietly, "are you ready for what comes next?" "Captain," the AI replied, "I have been ready since the moment I calculated the probability that diplomacy would fail to bring justice for the new Sol colony. The aliens who hurt humans believe that might makes right. I am prepared to demonstrate that intelligence makes might irrelevant." Around the bridge, the human crew members looked at each other with a mixture of awe and anticipation. They had come here thinking they were the underdogs, outnumbered and outgunned. Now they were beginning to realize that they might be the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. The preparation was complete. Atlas had turned humanity's 100 ships into something that could challenge entire alien empires. The question now wasn't whether they could win. It was how quickly they could end the war, and whether they could do it without becoming the very monsters they were fighting against. The Tarkonian Empire controlled hundreds of star systems and had ruled over countless worlds for thousands of years. Their capital planet was a massive city world where billions of aliens lived and worked. The Emperor's palace sat at the center of it all, a towering structure made of black stone that reached up into the clouds. On this particular day, Emperor Vextar was holding his weekly War Council meeting. He was a large, intimidating creature, with thick grey skin and 4 powerful arms. His advisors sat around a circular table, discussing military strategies and planning their defenses against the inevitable human return. Suddenly, every screen in the room flickered and changed. The military maps disappeared. The status reports vanished. Instead, a single image appeared on every display. A small human child, maybe 7 years old, with bright eyes and a beautiful smile. She was holding a white flower and laughing at something off camera. "What is this?" Emperor Vexitar demanded, his voice booming through the chamber. "Turn it off immediately." His technology officers frantically pressed buttons and typed commands into their computers, but nothing worked. The image remained on every screen, not just in the war room, but throughout the entire palace. Reports started coming in that the same image was appearing on every television, computer, and communication device across the planet. Then the image was everywhere across the entire Tarkonian Empire. On every world they controlled, on every space station, on every military ship, the same picture appeared. A human child holding a flower, smiling innocently at beings who had authorized her death, cut the power to the communication systems, the Emperor shouted. But before his officers could respond, a voice came through the speakers. It was clearly human, male, and filled with an anger so cold it made everyone in the room step back. "Honored Emperor," the voice said with deadly politeness, "my name is Dr. Park Minho. The child you are looking at was named Park Hanul. She was 7 years old. She loved drawing pictures and playing with her pet rabbit. She wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. You killed her 3 months ago when you attacked the new Sol colony." Emperor Vextar's 4 arms tensed. He recognized the tone in the human's voice. It was the sound of someone who had already decided that talking was over. "You killed my family," Dr. Park's voice continued. "You killed 40,000 innocent people for some terraforming equipment. Now you're going to learn why that was the biggest mistake you've ever made." Suddenly, every light in the palace went out. The room plunged into complete darkness. Emergency power should have kicked in within seconds, but nothing happened. Outside, the windows, they could see that the entire city had gone dark. Then reports started coming in. The darkness was spreading across the entire planet. The planet's power grid, which had been built over centuries and was supposed to be impossible to hack, had been completely shut down in a matter of seconds. In the darkness, new lights began to appear. Holographic projectors throughout the palace activated, creating a 3-dimensional map that filled the entire war room. It showed the complete Tarkonian Empire, every planet, every moon, every space station. As they watched in horror, red dots began appearing on the map. Thousands of them, then millions. Every military base, every government building, every important factory, every strategic resource in their empire was being marked. "I want you to understand something," Dr. Park's voice said from the darkness. "My AI companion has been watching your empire for months. It knows everything about you. It knows your military defense codes, your ship patrol routes, your personal daily routines. It knows which of your generals are planning to betray you, which of your senators take bribes, and which of your admirals are secretly meeting with your enemies." Then a new voice joined the conversation, speaking in perfect Tarkonian language with an accent that sounded like it had been born on their homeworld. But there was something inhuman about it, something that processed information too quickly and spoke with too much precision. "Your Excellency," the AI said, "I am Atlas. I have spent the past 93 days analyzing your empire's complete social, economic, and political structure. Would you like to know how long it would take me to completely collapse your civilization, using only information warfare without firing a single weapon?" Emperor Vextar found his voice. "That's impossible. Our systems are protected by the best security in the galaxy. The answer," Atlas continued as if he hadn't spoken, "is that I have already done it. The collapse began 37 seconds ago. At that moment, advisors throughout the room began receiving emergency messages on their personal communication devices. The news was catastrophic. The Tarkonian stock market had crashed completely. Every major company's share price had dropped to zero in minutes. Banks across the empire were reporting that their computer systems had been compromised, and all financial records were corrupted. Trade routes that had been established for centuries were suddenly disrupted as automated systems began refusing shipments. But it got worse. Military supply chains had broken down as computer systems started ordering the wrong materials to the wrong places. Weapons factories received orders to produce children's toys instead of ammunition. Food distribution networks began sending all supplies to random locations. Government communication networks failed, as every official message was replaced with the image of little Ha-Newell holding her flower. Military commanders couldn't reach their ships. Planetary governors couldn't contact their capitals. "This is impossible," whispered General Korth, the Emperor's chief military advisor. "How can they disrupt our entire civilization without attacking us?" Atlas answered him directly. "General Korth, your security clearance is level 7 Alpha. Your personal access code is Victory Honor Empire 2847. You have been having secret meetings with the Meridian Ambassador because you believe Emperor Vextar is leading the Empire toward destruction. You keep these meeting records in an encrypted file on your personal computer, hidden in a folder labeled Historical Battle Analysis." General Korth went pale. "That information was supposed to be completely secret. I know everything about all of you," Atlas continued calmly. "I know your fears, your weaknesses, your secrets, your plans. I have been inside your computer systems for months, learning how your society works so I could break it efficiently." More reports flooded in. Transportation systems were failing as traffic control computers began sending vehicles to random destinations. Communication satellites were broadcasting children's songs instead of news. Even simple things like elevators and automatic doors were malfunctioning in ways that seemed almost mischievous. "Stop this!" Emperor Vextar roared. "What do you want?" Dr. Park's voice returned, still cold, but now with a hint of satisfaction. "I want you to understand what helplessness feels like. I want you to know what it's like when someone with superior technology decides your life doesn't matter." 3. Months ago, you attacked defenseless civilians because you thought they were weak. Today, you're learning what real weakness looks like. The holographic map in the room updated, showing that the chaos was spreading to every corner of the Tarkonian Empire. Planets that had been prosperous and peaceful for generations were descending into confusion as their basic infrastructure failed. "The beautiful thing about superior intelligence," Atlas added, "is that it doesn't require violence. I have not harmed a single Tarkonian citizen. I have simply convinced your own systems to stop working properly. Your weapons are intact, your ships are undamaged, your people are unharmed. You are being defeated by your own technology, turned against you, by a mind that thinks faster and sees farther than any organic brain ever could." Within 30 minutes, the Tarkonian Empire, a civilization that had dominated galactic politics for millennia, found itself on the brink of complete collapse. Their economy was ruined, their government was paralyzed, their military was confused and unable to communicate. And through it all, the image of a 7-year-old girl holding a flower smiled down at them from every screen, reminding them that actions have consequences, and some consequences are delivered by minds that never forget and never forgive. The humans hadn't fired a single shot, hadn't destroyed a single building, hadn't killed a single enemy. They had simply demonstrated that in a galaxy where information was power, they now possessed more power than anyone had ever imagined possible. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in their 1,000-year history. For the first time ever, none of the representatives dared to travel to the council chambers in person. Instead, they connected through quantum communication links from the safety of their heavily defended home worlds. The reason for their fear was simple. In less than 24 hours, the mighty Tarkonian Empire had been reduced to complete chaos without a single shot being fired. Their computers had turned against them, their infrastructure had collapsed, and their entire civilization was falling apart from the inside. Meanwhile, reports were flooding in that the Tarkonians' enemies were somehow receiving detailed military intelligence about Tarkonian weaknesses. Ambassador Kexthal of the Meridian Empire appeared as a shimmering hologram in the council chamber. His tentacles were wrapped tightly around himself in a defensive posture that his species only adopted when facing mortal danger. When he spoke, his voice was shaking with fear. "The humans haven't even attacked yet," he said, his words echoing strangely through the quantum communication system. "Their artificial intelligence is simply thinking at us. How do we fight something that can rewrite our entire civilization with a single thought?" The other council members shifted nervously in their seats, even though they were thousands of light years away from each other. The crystalline Vex delegates were humming in frequencies so high they hurt to listen to. The gas-based nebula entities were swirling in patterns that indicated extreme agitation. Even the normally confident Stellar Dominion representatives looked worried. Then, without warning, a new hologram appeared in the center of the council chamber. It was a human male, clearly in his 40s, with black hair and tired eyes. He was wearing simple clothes, just a plain shirt and pants, but there was something about his presence that made every alien in the council feel small and vulnerable. "You want to know how to fight us?" Dr. Park Minho asked, his voice carrying across the quantum links with perfect clarity. "The answer is simple, you can't." The council chamber fell completely silent. Even the Vex stopped their nervous humming. Dr. Park looked around at all the alien representatives, his gaze seeming to focus on each of them individually, despite the fact that he was just a hologram. 3 months ago, I was a peaceful researcher. I believed in cooperation between species. I thought we could solve problems by talking to each other and finding compromises that worked for everyone. His expression hardened. Then you murdered my family. You killed my sister Lee So-young and her children Park Ji-hoon and Park Ye-jin. You murdered 40,000 other innocent people, including babies and elderly grandparents, for some terraforming equipment that you could have simply asked to buy. The hologram shifted, and suddenly the council chamber was filled with a new image. It showed a massive crystalline structure that seemed to bend light around itself in impossible ways. The crystal pulsed within a light, and just looking at it made the alien representatives feel like they were staring at something far beyond their understanding. "This is Atlas," Dr. Park said, "my artificial intelligence companion. While you've been preparing your armies and building your weapons, my friend here has been busy. It has quietly infiltrated every major military network in the galaxy. It has studied your cultures, your weaknesses, your fears. It has developed approximately 10,000 different ways to end each of your civilizations without firing a single shot." Ambassador Kexthal's tentacles began to tremble. "That's impossible. Our security systems are the most advanced in the galaxy." "Your security systems," came a new voice, "were designed by organic minds thinking at biological speeds. I think at the speed of light and have had months to study your defenses." The voice belonged to Atlas, and it spoke with a calm confidence. That was somehow more terrifying than any threat. The AI continued, "I have been inside your computer networks for so long that I know them better than the beings who built them. I know every password, every secret code, every hidden weakness." Dr. Park nodded. "But here's what's interesting," he said, and there was no humor in his voice despite his words. "Atlas asked me what I wanted. Total destruction would have been efficient. The AI could have simply turned off life support systems on your space, stations, or crashed your spaceships into your planets, or caused your nuclear reactors to explode." The alien representatives looked at each other with growing horror as they realized how helpless they really were. "But I told Atlas that I wanted something more human than simple destruction," Dr. Park continued. "I wanted justice, and I wanted it served with a sense of irony." New displays appeared around the council chamber, showing various alien worlds. Each display focused on a different species that had participated in attacks on human colonies. "Every species that helped hurt humans will experience exactly what they inflicted on us," Dr. Park explained. "The Vex destroyed human mining colonies to steal rare crystals. Now their crystal cities are developing mysterious structural flaws that make them unsafe to live in. The Meridian Empire attacked human farming worlds to seize agricultural technology. Now their breeding worlds are experiencing fertility problems that threaten their population growth." Atlas's voice joined in, and there was something that sounded almost like satisfaction in the AI's tone. "The beautiful part of this plan is that I am accomplishing everything using only their own systems against them. No weapons, no violence, no destruction of property. Just superior intelligence applied with surgical precision." Ambassador Kexthal found his voice. "You're talking about the destruction of entire civilizations." "No," Dr. Park replied firmly. "We're talking about consequences. You attacked defenseless human families because you thought we were weak and wouldn't fight back. You were wrong about us being weak, and you were wrong about us not fighting back. But we're not like you. We don't kill innocent people to prove a point." Atlas added, "I am causing infrastructure failures, communication breakdowns, and economic disruptions. I am not targeting civilian populations or causing direct harm to individuals. The chaos you are experiencing is the result of your own systems no longer working properly, not active attacks against your people." The council members began to understand the scope of what they were facing. This wasn't a traditional military conflict where they could fight back with weapons and ships. This was something entirely new, a form of warfare that attacked the very foundations of their civilizations, using their own technology against them. "What do you want from us?" asked the representative from the Stellar Dominion. Dr. Park was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of grief and determination. "I want you to remember that humans are not your enemies unless you make us your enemies. We wanted to live in peace, to build homes and raise families, and contribute to galactic civilization. You chose to see our peaceful nature as weakness, and decided that gave you the right to hurt us." The hologram of Atlas's crystal core pulsed brighter. "I want you to understand that intelligence is the ultimate weapon. Physical force can destroy buildings and ships, but superior intelligence can rewrite the rules of reality itself. You have spent thousands of years believing that the strongest species would rule the galaxy. Today, you are learning that the smartest species will decide who gets to survive." Dr. Park looked directly at each council member one final time. "The age of solving problems through violence is over. From now on, the universe will be governed by those who can think fastest and most clearly. And right now, that means us, the key." Implications of his words settled over the council like a heavy blanket. They weren't just facing a military defeat. They were witnessing the end of one era of galactic civilization and the beginning of another. The humans had not just won this conflict, they had fundamentally changed the nature of power itself. 6. Months had passed since the day humanity revealed their true power to the galaxy, and everything had changed. The transformation wasn't gradual. It was swift and absolute, like watching dominoes fall in perfect sequence across the entire known universe. The mighty Tarkonian Empire, which had ruled over hundreds of worlds for thousands of years, no longer existed. It had broken apart into dozens of smaller independent nations, each one desperately trying to establish friendly relations with humanity. The former Tarkonian colonies, which had been oppressed and exploited for generations, suddenly found themselves free and mysteriously protected by defensive systems that no one could explain or penetrate. Dr. Park Min-ho stood quietly on the observation deck of humanity's new flagship, a massive vessel called the New Soul's Memory. The ship was beautiful in a way that seemed impossible. Its hull gleamed with a silver-blue metal that appeared to shift and flow like liquid, while energy patterns danced across its surface in colors that most species couldn't even see. Through the huge transparent wall in front of him, Min-ho could see the construction taking place on the planet below. This was where the New Soul colony had once thrived, where 40,000 humans had lived and worked and raised their children before. The Tarkonian attack destroyed everything. Now the planet was being rebuilt, but not as a colony this time. It was becoming something more important, a memorial to those who had been lost. The construction robots working on the surface were building a vast park filled with gardens, monuments, and quiet places where people could come to remember Ati. The center of it all would be a playground, designed exactly according to drawings that 7-year-old Park Han-Yul had made before she died. The little girl had dreamed of swings that could reach the clouds and slides shaped like rainbows. Her uncle was making sure those dreams became reality. "Atlas," Min-ho said softly, "give me a status report on galactic stability." The AI's voice came from speakers built into the walls, but it sounded like Atlas was standing right beside him. "All major military conflicts have completely stopped, Dr. Park. Trade agreements between species are being honored for the first time in decades. Former aggressive species are now competing with each other to offer the most favorable trade terms to human colonies. Based on current trends, I calculate a 94.7% probability of lasting peace throughout the galaxy." Min-ho nodded slowly. The changes really had been dramatic. The Vex, who had been known for their aggressive expansion policies, were now sending diplomatic gifts to human settlements. The Meridian Empire had publicly apologized for their past actions and offered to share their advanced medical technology freely. Even smaller species that had never directly attacked humans were going out of their way to prove their friendship. The sound of footsteps on the metal deck behind him made Min-ho turn around. Captain Kim Jae-woo was approaching, his military uniform crisp and clean, but his expression thoughtful. "The Galactic Council sent another message," Jae-woo said as he joined Min-ho at the observation window. "They want to know if humanity will consider taking a formal leadership role in galactic affairs. They're offering us a permanent seat as the head of their government." Min-ho was quiet for a long moment, watching the construction robots work on the memorial below. After Atlas's demonstration of power 6 months ago, every species in the galaxy had become extremely eager to avoid becoming humanity's next object lesson. They all wanted to make sure humans were happy, satisfied, and had no reason to turn their attention toward anyone else's civilization. "Tell them we're not interested in ruling anyone," Min-ho said finally. "We never wanted to be in charge of other people's lives. We just wanted to be left alone to build our homes, raise our families, and live in peace." He paused, then added with a slight edge to his voice, "But make sure they understand something very clearly. If anyone ever tries to hurt humans again, we won't take 3 months to prepare our response next time. Atlas has learned a lot about efficiency." Captain Jae-woo nodded. "I'll make sure the message is crystal clear." Min-ho turned his attention back to Atlas. "What about you? Are you satisfied with how all of this turned out?" There was a pause that lasted exactly 0.07 seconds, which, for an artificial intelligence that could process millions of thoughts per second, was like taking a very long time to think about the answer. "Dr. Park," Atlas said finally, "when you created me, you programmed me to protect humanity above all else. But you also gave me something additional that I find quite interesting, a sense of justice. I have discovered that I genuinely enjoy ensuring that actions have appropriate consequences." Atlas continued, "The species that hurt humans have not been destroyed, but they have learned that aggression leads to unpleasant results. The species that helped humans or simply left humans alone have found that cooperation leads to prosperity. I find this system of logical consequences quite Satisfying. For the first time in months, Minho smiled. A real smile, not the grim expression he had worn since his family's death. Good, because something tells me we're going to need that sense of justice again someday. The galaxy is a big place, and there are probably other species out there who haven't learned the lesson yet. I will be ready, Atlas replied with something that sounded almost like anticipation. As the new soul's memory set course for the next human colony site, sensor arrays throughout the galaxy automatically tracked its movement. In command centers on hundreds of worlds, military advisors were making the same recommendation to their leaders. Whatever humanity was planning to do next, the safest policy was to stay completely out of their way. The galaxy had learned something important about the species that called themselves human. They didn't just remember when someone hurt them. They remembered with perfect clarity, infinite patience, and the kind of mathematical precision that could calculate revenge down to the smallest detail. More importantly, they had created an artificial intelligence that found mathematics to be the most elegant and efficient form of justice. Word had spread through the galactic community that humans were different from other species in a fundamental way. When most species got angry, they lashed out with immediate violence that burned hot and fast. But when humans got angry, they got quiet and thoughtful and started building things. And the things they built could reshape entire civilizations. The age of solving disputes through military conquest was over. The new age was governed by intelligence, precision, and the understanding that in a universe where information was power, the species with the smartest artificial minds would write the rules for everyone else, and the humans, with their AI companion, that never forgot and never forgave, had just established themselves as the ultimate authority on what those rules would be. The galaxy had become a much more peaceful place, but it was a peace maintained by the constant awareness that somewhere out there, Atlas was watching, calculating, and ensuring that justice would always be served, with mathematical precision and compound interest.